Father, we thank you for this time that we can be together and look at your word and look at your ways, and we ask that you would be with us, especially tonight as we do this, as we put your word first and foremost in our lives. And we ask that your Spirit be with us to interpret things for us so that we don't privately interpret these things. We ask in Yeshua's name, amen. Now, we had decided that we were going to look at some prophecy, right?
Yes.
Now, I've been kind of sort of wrestling with this. When I used to teach in college, and the course that I taught was entry-level electrical trades training for the most part. Sometimes I taught different levels, but for the most part I taught the entry-level electrical. So there was, like, you had to teach math, you had to teach basic math because electrical is fairly heavy into the math. And so I had to go back to square one because these guys, a lot of them were out of school for a while. Some of them didn't even finish, grade 12, which they recommended that you have grade 12 math for electrical. But a lot of them didn't have it. So I had to go back to square one and teach things like 7 plus 6 equals 13. Now that's probably pretty basic for all of you guys. Is that a correct statement? Yeah. That's pretty basic. But I had to do that because some of the people needed that, because I had to have everyone at least at a certain point before I could really start into the theory of electrical and the math of electrical. So we had to bring them up to speed. So when I compare this to prophecy, now I come from a Seventh-day Adventist background, and they consider themselves prophecy students. However, when I start to talk to them about the different prophecies in Daniel and Revelation, and you ask them, well, do you remember what the beasts are in Daniel chapter 7? And they look at you as if, like, what are you talking about? And I'm thinking, well, you should actually know that. So I don't know really what you guys' background are, but if I asked you what a beast stood for in Bible prophecy, somebody want to just throw the answer at me? What would a beast represent in Bible prophecy?
King.
A king, okay, or a kingdom. Now, a kingdom can be different than a king. A kingdom can be made up of a number of kings. So it can be a kingdom made up of a number of kings, 2 kings, 3 kings. We see in Daniel chapter 7, there's a kingdom in the 4th beast that was dreadful and terrible, and it was made up of 10 kings. So it had 10 horns. So when you see a beast at large, and then it has horns, or even heads, multiple heads, those could represent kingdoms that make up that dominion. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's go to something a little bit different, because these prophecies all come into it. And I'm purposely picking this one, and there's a reason that I will, and I'll disclose that when we get there. Zechariah, turn to Zechariah. That would be in the Old Testament. I'll give you the page number when I get there. Zechariah chapter 6. That's page 953. Okay. So Zechariah chapter 6 has 4 horses. And let's look at these here. Chapter 6. Then I turned and raised my eyes, and I looked, and behold, 4 chariots were coming from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of bronze. With the first chariot were red horses, and the second chariot black horses, and the third chariot white horses, and the fourth chariot dappled horses, strong steeds. Then I answered and said to the angel who talked with me, "What are these, my Lord?" And the angel answered and said to me, "These are 4 spirits of heaven, who go out from their station before the Lord of all the earth." Okay. And then it says the directions where they're going. So what are these horses in this prophecy?
Spirits of heaven.
Nice. They're spirits of heaven. It's just that simple. So when you get into prophecy, prophecy interprets itself. We've got to remember that. Now, I've had people tell me that this is the same prophecy as Daniel chapter 7. But Daniel chapter 7 says that these 4 beasts are 4 kingdoms. And then we get to Revelation, where there's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Everyone knows that term. And, well, let's go there. Let's go there. So we're doing some groundwork here. It's kind of like Prophecy 101. And I know this is real basic for probably all of you, but when we see this in kind of black and white, I think it really helps. I know it really helped me anyways.
Where do you want to go to?
I want to go to Revelation chapter 6. So we were in Zechariah chapter 6, now we're in Revelation chapter 6.
Oh, that's another talk.
Okay? Now, in chapter 6, verse 2, actually, yeah. Let's go to verse 6, chapter 6, verse 1, sorry. Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying with a voice like thunder, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him. And he went out conquering and to conquer. So what does this represent?
Kingdoms normally conquer other kingdoms.
Nice. Okay, so you're using a bit of reason here. You're thinking that this is probably not spirits. It seems to be different than that, right? So my point being, we've got to use, sometimes we've got to use a little bit of reason. And then we look at this, and it's this thing is going out to conquer and to conquer and conquering. So with that in mind, with that little bit of reason, let's keep going. When he opened the second seal, I heard a second living creature saying, "Come and see." And another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth. And that people should kill one another, and there was given him a great sword. So, with your idea about a kingdom for the first one, would that hold true here too, possibly?
Yeah.
Sure.
Could be. We can't say for sure at this point, I don't think, but I think we're on the right track. We definitely can't rule that out. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. It's not likely that something like this is going on in heaven. This is here again. This looks like definitely something going on the earth. When he opened the fourth seal, I heard a voice of 4 living creatures saying, come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger and death, and by the beasts of the earth. Okay. So if this one has a power over a fourth of the earth, that sounds a lot like a kingdom, doesn't it?
Tom,
Yeah.
that in that verse it says, and power was given to them over a fourth of the earth. Does that mean each one had a fourth each?
Well, I would say that bit of information, the way it reads, the way I've looked at that, power was given to them. The them are the riders. And it says, I looked and behold a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. So there seems to be 2 entities here. I've always kind of looked at that as being the them, but your point is definitely a possibility. Is the them all 4, and each one was given a fourth of the earth?
Well, the reason I say that is because it says they were given to kill with the sword. The sword is in the first one. Kill with hunger is the third one, and death. Was that the second one? Because no, the second one is the sword.
Yeah.
Then the third one is hunger because of scarcity.
Yeah.
So it's just that their different things match up with all the horsemen.
Yeah. Yeah. And death is the last one. Yeah. So you've got the 3 out of the 4 at least. That's a very real possibility. You couldn't rule that out either. That could very well be the best interpretation. I've always looked at that as that fourth beast was given power over a quarter of the earth, and by default, because there's 3 other ones, they each would get a quarter as well. So either way, you come up with the same answer. Maybe the way you're looking at it is a better way to come at that. Now it's interesting where it says that they were able to kill by the beasts of the earth. What is that? Is that talking about being thrown to the lion's den?
That's what I was thinking, actually.
Happened in the past.
Or is it the actually the beasts of those beasts that are pictured in Revelation and Daniel?
Nice. Yeah. That's an absolute possibility that it could be both. I'm thinking it could very well be both. But because when we go back to Daniel, and that's the key, that's the real key with prophecy, is connecting the right prophecy to the right prophecy. Are we connecting the dots that need to be connected, or are we connecting dots that don't connect? Like the reason why I went to Zechariah is I believe those dots do not connect. Those dots in Zechariah could very well have been sent out in the time of Zechariah. And they went out to those areas in the time of Zechariah. That's one of the things about the Old Testament prophets that people seem to overlook, is that the prophets wrote and have had prophecies for their day, and they also had prophecies for down the road. So we can't take Zechariah and say, oh, the whole book of Zechariah is in the future. Well, wait a minute. Why would you do that? Because if you actually look at Zechariah, there's about 6 clear first coming prophecies in the book of Zechariah. So clearly the whole book of Zechariah is not in the future. So the trickiest part, and I've come to this conclusion recently probably in the last 2 years, but more forcefully in the last year, is that, and I want to say this without any sort of sound of arrogance at all. So, and I know people, if I'm in the wrong company, I say something like this, I'm just dead. I'm dead meat. I'm slaughtered instantly. If we do not have the spirit of prophecy helping us interpret the prophecies to get the dots connected where they need to go, we will absolutely get it wrong almost every time. And the reason is because the prophecies are very confusing unless we're led by the Spirit that inspired the prophets. Does that make sense? Just because, and it's becoming very obvious to me, and I've listened to a lot of people say, I had a pastor tell me, oh, those guys, at the Biblical Research Institute or whatever the theological institution is for whatever church a person belongs to, well, they've gone to school and they've gone to theology school and they spent 7 years or 5 years or 4 years, whatever it was, and they're a lot smarter. You know what I've found is those people that think they're a lot smarter because they went to school, that could work completely against them because they think they're sufficient for the day. Just like, if we can't learn the lessons of the past, you know what's going to happen, right? Well, the Pharisees were just those kind of people. They went to all the right schools, listened to all the right teachers, and yet they got all the prophecies completely wrong. They got the sanctuary typology completely wrong. And here we are today, repeating the same thing. So I'm becoming more and more convinced, and I pray continually, Father, I need your Spirit. Otherwise, I better just leave this book alone because I'm only going to get myself into trouble if I start trying to interpret these prophecies according to my understanding and my know-how, because it's totally insufficient. And that's becoming very, very clear to me. And I've been in the company, a lot of people, they'll start studying the Bible. They don't even pray first. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You have no clue what you're playing with. Because Satan is as active at Bible study as the Holy Spirit is. And we need to understand that. He is very busy when we're studying the Bible. And so we need protection like we don't even understand. So that's not prophecy, but it's very important that we understand that. And I think we do. Okay. So now, Marguerite, what you've just done is you've connected Daniel 6 or Revelation chapter 6 to possibly Daniel chapter 7. Am I correct in stating that? Okay, because Daniel chapter 7, it says that all the beasts end up persecuting God's people. And so if this is saying something. We see 4 horsemen and riders all doing separate things. If these are kingdoms, and this is what we have to come to grips with, if these are kingdoms and it's talking about the time of the end, and Daniel has kingdoms, and we think that they're talking about the time of the end, are we talking about 8 kingdoms, or are we talking about the same kingdoms? The 4 kingdoms of Daniel chapter 7 equal the 4 horses of Revelation chapter 6. I think that's a valid question. So how do we determine whether now we're dealing with 8 kingdoms, or are these the same prophecies and they overlay each other? I'm looking for ideas. Jade, I can tell you have the answer. Share it with us.
I'm sorry, I do not have the answers.
Oh, you just don't want to give it away. You want everyone else to give it. Okay, so somebody give us some give us your thought. And you know what? There's no wrong answer here, really. We're just looking at ideas. So how would we determine whether these 4 horsemen are actually a duplicate prophecy of Daniel chapter 7, where we have a lion, a bear, a leopard, and a dreadful beast? And then we have a little horn that persecutes God's people. And then he gets the whole world to persecute God's people. So that's Daniel 7. Now we have here 4 horsemen, each having, it looks like they're 4 kingdoms again. And it's not till we get to the 4th kingdom that we see persecution. Well, that's identical to Daniel chapter 7. It's not until we get to the 4th kingdom that we see persecution. Okay, thoughts? Anybody want to throw in some ideas here?
My only thought is that because in Daniel 7 we've kind of identified that it could be the US and China and Russia, that to me that would link to Revelation.
Why would it link to Revelation?
Because I don't know if those kingdoms were, happening like that back then. I don't know.
Okay. Now, which kingdoms were happening back then? I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to feel out what you're getting at here.
Yeah, the USA for example.
Okay. So if the USA, so like you're saying, so if we're entertaining the idea that England and the United States are a team, so that's the lion with the eagle's wings, how do we get that here? Is that what you're saying? How do we get that in Revelation chapter 6?
Yeah.
Okay. Because primarily, what would be the reason that you would say or possibly suggest that maybe we can't get that from Revelation 6? What would be a reason why we couldn't get that in Revelation 6?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's no lion or eagle, but would one of the other symbols represent the lion and the eagle?
We were trying to match this up the other day. We were reading this, and we thought we had them worked out, leaving the US off altogether, with just England, Russia, China, and the EU. Sorry, and it all made sense then, but I've forgotten what we'd worked out now.
Well, if let's let's, we've got to entertain different ideas if we're going to come up with something. Like I think it was, who's the guy that did the light bulb? Was that Mr. Watt or Mr. Edison?
Edison.
Okay, so apparently, by the time he did the light bulb, that was like his 1,000th try. And I don't know if it was his 1,000th try, but he had tried to do this thing so many times. But he had tried and failed, tried and failed, tried and failed, tried and failed. Just hang on to your idea there, Marguerite. So we've got to, as students of prophecy, we've got to try some things. Paul says, prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. So we try stuff and see if it fits, but we've got to be honest with ourselves and say, you know what? We've tried that. It just doesn't fit. And if it doesn't fit, then we discard it. And so I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's worth checking out. We've got 4 there, 4 there. They seem to be kingdoms in Daniel 7. They seem to be kingdoms in Daniel 8 or Revelation 6. Now, what you just said, I think, Jade, is that are we dealing with the same time period? Are both these prophecies at the time of the end? If they're both at the time of the end, then they could very well overlap. But if we can demonstrate that these are not in the time of the end, then there's no way they overlap, obviously. If we're talking about a different time frame, then they're different kingdoms. It's that simple. And I think that's kind of the point you were making, the possibility. Is that right?
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, good. And that's totally valid. Marguerite, you had a comment.
This probably isn't right, but when you were talking about,
Don't start like that.
well, I'm tired, my brain's not working. But you mentioned Zechariah's 4 horsemen, that those were back then. So doesn't Yah work in cyclical patterns over time? Like the 4 horses in Zechariah, that was for that time. These are for, I'm thinking our time, but could we have seen this pattern throughout history in a cycle that could be repeating itself? Like when the Inquisition happened, or when Rome was killing all those people back then, would be symbolic of the persecution going on with the 4th horseman in Revelation. And that's coming around again now. And does that make sense at all?
Yeah, I follow what you're saying. And that makes sense. And here's how it makes sense. But see, there's something about the prophecies, and this is why we have preterists. And we've been kind of looking at that. We're going to look at this more because I really want to unpack this concept. Once we understand the different ways to interpret prophecy and how we project it onto different time periods, once we get that sorted out in our own mind, prophecy is not that complicated anymore. It's where is it in time? Now, history has a tendency to repeat itself. Right. Why is that?
Well,
people don't learn the lessons.
Learn.
Nice, exactly. Human beings are fallen, and they're very predictable when they're fallen. They're going to do certain things. They want to rise to the top. They want to overrule everyone and all the people with power. So we see history is we're always dealing with kingdoms want to be the number 1 or the number 2 or whatever. And go ahead, Cheryl.
Can we look at the order of the way they're written in the other place, the beasts? and then the order that the horses, can we get a clue from the order? That's
Yeah, I think we can, because that helps us to know whether they're the same. If we can line them up together, they come in the same order, if we can do that, and that's something that we're going to do. We'll do that. But I just want to get back to what Marguerite said, because it's it's a really good point that we need to look at. Zechariah, and I want to go there. Let's go back there, because there's something that we kind of miss, and you guys are on track, and I can tell that. So that's really good. Okay, Zechariah chapter 6. It says in Zechariah chapter 6 that the angel answered and said to me, "These are the four spirits of heaven who go out to their station before the Lord of all the earth. The one with the black horses is going to the north country. The white are going after them, and the dappled are going toward the south country." Then the strong steeds went out, eager to go, that they might walk to and fro throughout the earth. And he said, "Go walk to and fro throughout the earth." So they walked to and fro throughout the earth. And he called to me and spoke to me, saying, "See, those who go toward the north country have given rest to my spirit in the north country." Now, and then it goes into this prophecy, which we're not going to look at right now. It's some prophecy of the first coming, and actually it's kind of interesting. But so my point here is the angels that are commissioned to go into the earth and go check things out. We see the same thing in Job, the book of Job. Satan says, I've been walking to and fro in the earth. And God says, well, what have you been doing? And so he had to give an answer. So these are the spirits that go to the earth. There's evil spirits and there's good spirits. And we see this a number of places throughout the Bible. In Chronicles, there's a place when Ahab and, what was the other king? Ahab and Jehoshaphat. Is it Jehoshaphat? Yeah, I think so. Actually, just let me see if I can find it here, because this is kind of an interesting point here, because it helps us to differentiate between these spirits that are going out that influence kings. They're not the kings, they just influence the kings to do certain things. And we see a clear example of that, so there's no need for us to be confused on what's going on. Now, I'm just trying to think of where that is. I'm looking for Ahab. Yeah, I think it is Ahab and Jehoshaphat.
What about the lying spirit? Is that the one about the lying spirit?
Yes. Yes. 1 Kings 18. Yeah, it's 2 Chronicles actually 18 as well. It might be 1 Kings, 1st or 2nd Kings. It should be able to tell you that here right away. 1 Kings 22 as well. And if you're on Chronicles chapter 18, it says 2 Chronicles 18, verse 18. We'll start there. And yeah. 2 Chronicles 18. Then Micaiah said, "Therefore, hear the word of Jehovah. I saw Jehovah sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing at his right hand and on his left. And Jehovah said, who will persuade Ahab, king of Israel, to go up, that he may fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one spoke in this manner, and another spoke in that manner. Then a spirit came forward and stood before Jehovah and said, I will persuade him. Jehovah said to him, in what way? As if he needed to know. But this is interesting. Just a side note here. It's very interesting. God knew exactly what this spirit was going to do, but he wanted everyone else to know. He wanted this spirit to cough it up. When God asks you a question, you give an answer, even if you don't want to. These spirits have to respond. This is an evil spirit. Then a spirit came forward before Jehovah and said, I will persuade him. And Jehovah said to him, in what way? So he said, I will go out and be a lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets. Ah, a lying spirit, are you? And Jehovah said, you shall persuade him and also prevail. Go and do so. Now, yeah, I don't want to get into all the ins and outs about this, but basically what I'm looking at here is this is a spirit that goes out to a king of the earth and persuades him to do something. That's exactly the same picture that we see in Zechariah. These are the 7 spirits that stand before the Lord, and they go out to the north country, to the south country, and they're giving their reports in Zechariah. So that's why I say, Zechariah, just because they have horses, it doesn't mean they're kings. Those are the spirits that inspire the kings. So it's a matter of correctly interpreting what these things are. So, okay, did we cover that? Marguerite, did that sort of clarify that a bit? Or not? Okay. Okay, so you also asked about different time frames and could these things all be repeating? Well, we know because fallen human beings do the same thing over and over again, and the evil spirits are doing the same things over and over again with the kings of the earth, is we should see repeat in this stuff. And we do. The question is that I have is some of these prophecies, like Daniel and Revelation, although they can be applied in history because of their lack of detail, sometimes if you don't have, it's kind of like, and I hate to use this as an example, but it is a pretty good example. When you go to the checkout counter and you see horoscopes and you pick it up and they're so vague that you could probably apply it to your life. And that would be the stupidest thing for you to do. But what I'm saying is they're broad enough that you could make some application. And I think in the wisdom of God that he has had the prophecies written in a way that's given people hope through the centuries of history, because they see that there's a possibility that those kings that are talking about in the prophecies might be the kings that are alive and well and working in their day. But when we see the prophecies for what they are, I think it's going to become very clear that they are so detailed that they can't fit in any other time but the time of the end. But the thing is, we're not going to see that until the time of the end. I see you're nodding up and down. That means you're agreeing with me? Okay. Now, these are all things that I've thought about, but I'm not saying that I'm the final authority by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just sharing what has made sense over the years as I've tried to grapple with this. So if it makes sense, then great. But if it doesn't, that I don't mind hearing about that. So
Dan and I were talking about this the other day. You know, we're looking and looking and looking and praying and pondering and praying and studying it, trying to understand it with our hearts. And when we see it, we'll know. That's, you know, if we're looking and we're studying, and then we should know when we do see it, this is really it.
yeah, exactly. And you know, it's a gradual thing. It's been a gradual thing with me anyways. I'm only speaking from my own experience. You look at what it might be, and you keep studying, like, it might be, this might be it. But the more, what I keep telling people, just keep studying it, because you're going to see whether it's true or whether it's not, but just keep studying it. From my own perspective, I just keep studying it. And the more I study it, the more I see the validity that both Daniel and Revelation are for the time of the end. Have they been applied in history? Yes. Was it kind of God ordained? Yes. Because nothing takes him by surprise. He knew that people would apply, you know, Daniel 7 to Babylon, Medo Persia, Greece, and Rome. He knew that. That didn't catch him by surprise. And it had to work. It did it. It worked for them in their day. However, when we get to the time of the end, wow, they're really speaking now. Okay, so where did we get to here? Okay, I know where we are. So how detailed do we want to get with these two prophecies? Do we want to actually have a really good look at these two prophecies, or do we want to jump and look at some other prophecies as well?
Well, so you're saying that the beast in Daniel 7. So the first beast, the lion with eagle's wings, stood up and like a man, compares with the white horse rider who had a crown and a bow, and he was conquering and to conquer. So are we to see the correlation with wings and a lion? Is that a bow and a crown? And
Okay.
Is there a conquering aspect in that?
Okay, so what I do, something that I like to do, is find the obvious connections first. So if we were to look at, and I think this might be a good exercise. If we were to look at this prophecy, yes, Marguerite, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm going to throw this in there because every time I need to find Daniel here.
Daniel's in the Old Testament.
Yes, I know that. I was in the wrong place. So every time we look at Daniel 7, I notice something, and I don't know how it fits, but I notice it every single time. And it just, because I notice little things sometimes that might or might not be important. I noticed that when the eagle's wings are plucked off, you guys are going to think I'm really crazy, but the eagle's wings are plucked off, and the lion was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And I can't help but wonder if that's in any way correlated to the number of a man in the book of Revelation.
Well, that's yeah, because you see a man and you see a man, and that's worthy to check it out. Just because you see a couple dots there that look very much the same, so that's a good possibility.
So we see a line. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just going to. I don't want to cut you off because that's okay. definitely we can look at that. But let's back up a little bit and let's just connect some what could be possibly obvious dots. So let's entertain this. Let's either write this idea off, or let's explore it. So what do we got in? We got. I'm going to connect these dots here. I went kind of mildly. It said, they said unto it, arise and devour much flesh. I just put flesh. That sounds kind of nasty, doesn't it? This one, the second one, and what does it say about that one?
Goes out to war.
What does it say?
And go out to war.
Takes peace from the earth.
Right. Kill one another.
Red, so it's red, so it's making a lot of blood.
Good.
Or
Good.
red like the Red Army, right? Maybe.
Okay, so we see an obvious connection here, I think, a possible obvious connection. We've got a bear, it's devouring much flesh. We've got a red horse, kill, takes peace from the earth. And that's definitely something that we can see is the same. So here we have 4. This is very close to being the same. Okay, what else do we have?
Should you write sword beside the bear? He was given a sword.
Who was given a sword?
The bear, the red
The red
horse.
horse.
Sorry, the red horse. So not the bear, red horse. Sorry, it's given a great sword.
Right. Okay, and that's interesting. Why are you making that point? Because I wrote down kill, but why would you say sword?
And it's mentioned again at the end of the 4.
Okay, so when
Sword makes blood.
yeah, sword makes
makes
blood. But
Yeah.
anytime the Bible refers to the sword,
Yeah.
that's typically almost all the time when it refers to sword, that's war. That's in reference to war. And so this red horse goes to kill, take peace from the earth. I mean, how plain does it need to get? It kills, takes peace from the earth, and it's given a great sword. A great sword. Isn't it a great sword?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's
And-
not,
And
not
the red
just a
horse
sword.
is not just red, he's fiery red.
He's fiery red. Yeah.
Fiery red.
Okay.
Not only that, the first horse, the rider on the first horse was given the crown, and this one was given the sword.
Okay. So this one is, are you talking about the white horse now or?
Yeah, the white horse was given a crown.
Right.
He already had a bow, but he was given a crown.
Right. Now what would be given a crown? What's a possibility? What would that refer to?
A ruler. Wouldn't it?
Yeah,
King
but if
ruler?
these
It's
If-
already a ruler.
yeah, if these guys are all kingdoms,
They're already ruling.
Then
yeah.
this
maybe
one's
it's the number
already-
one kingdom.
what's that?
Maybe it's the number one kingdom.
Ah,
If
nice.
they were given a crown.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that. He's
Yeah.
the one that's the number one king.
Yeah.
He has dominion. He has earthly dominion over the other kingdoms. It's just a possibility, right? Okay. So he's the one that gets the crown. Now, we've got a leopard. And what does it say about the leopard? He's got 4 heads, 4 wings. And what does it say? Something quite interesting there.
Dominion was given to it.
He had 4 wings of a bird.
And 4 heads, 4 wings.
Whoops. Get this right, yeah. Okay, 4 heads and 4 wings, and it says dominion was given to it. So that's interesting because this and this are similar. But we moved from Revelation and to Daniel here, but we seem to have some kind of dominion given here. And that's a we don't want to miss that point in here. So what about this one? This is, if we're going, and famine.
He had a pair of scales in his hand.
Right, right. And I understand the amount of money that it takes to buy the wheat and the barley is like a day's wages for like one day of food type of thing. So, so we're talking famine at this time of the. Now here we go. Here, the fourth beast.
They weren't given anything.
It's not given anything.
Nor was the third one. Neither of those last 2 were given. They had things, but they weren't given anything.
Well, what's the 4 heads and the 4 wings of the leopard?
We're going to get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. But it's just information that is, and what I like to say, it's not ink on paper. These are details that we need to deal with, at least at some point. Okay, 4th beast. It has 10 horns, right? And it has a little horn. A little
Great
horn.
iron teeth.
Iron teeth, okay. Iron teeth. And what else does it do?
Tramples, breaks, and devours.
Nice. Okay, I'm just going to cut to the chase here, and this one makes war against the saints.
The
Okay.
same little horn.
Yeah, yeah. And if somebody read verse 24, please.
Of Daniel.
Yeah, 7:24.
The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall rise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings.
Okay. And I might have wanted 23. Yeah, 23, sorry. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be a 4th kingdom. So we're not talking spirits now, we're talking a kingdom. It's a 4th kingdom on the earth, no question about where it is, which shall be different from all other kingdoms and shall devour the whole earth. So we know that these are all kingdoms of the earth But this fourth kingdom is going to consume all this. In other words, he's going to take control of the whole thing. So that's what we know. It's interesting, this one, when we get down to the dappled horse, or however.
Oh my gosh. Mute me, mute me.
The dappled horse, it says that, so this is the fourth one now. The dappled horse, it says that he kills with all these different methods, and it also says, and by the beasts of the earth. Well, the fourth horse consumes the whole earth, persecutes God's people, and we see the persecution of God's people here in the dappled horse. That's the fourth one. And it says he kills also by the beasts of the earth. So my question is, are these the beasts that this guy is operating under? It's a possible connection.
Where are you getting the dappled horse?
Oh, there's different translations.
Hail.
It kind of depends what translation you're reading. Let me see here.
Some say pale, some say dapple, and mine says green.
Green.
Yeah, so I'm not particular on which translation you're using. It's the fourth horse, and it's kind of a weird description for a horse, and this guy he's camouflaged, if you will, a bit. Okay, so this one, there's a huge connection that is screaming at us, I think, that says this prophecy is equal to this. And we haven't seen it yet. Daniel 7, 10, and 11. After this one comes on stream, we see something quite interesting. It says in verse 9 of chapter 7, Daniel, I was watching till thrones were put in place. The Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow. His hair on his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. 1,000 thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. And I watched then, because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking, I watched till the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. Okay. What is that saying? I think it's saying that the judgment happens during the time of this persecution that the little horn is involved in. Why do I say that? Because verse 8 talks, the little horn is speaking, pompous words, and we see in verse 11 that the little horn is speaking still. So during the time that the little horn is speaking and persecuting God's people, the judgment is set in heaven. Do we see that? Is that making any sense?
Yeah, and when it's carried out is when it is taken out and burned.
Right, right. We can't have the destruction of the little horn without some kind of a judgment. And we see that. We see there's no court in the land that, well, I shouldn't even say that anymore. Typically in a court setting, there's the investigation to find out whether someone's guilty or not. And once the determination of whether they're guilty or not, then if they're guilty, there's the executive phase of the judgment. And that's where the court says, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, death sentence, whatever. And it would seem that because of what the little horn is doing, i.e. persecuting God's people, God says guilty, and then there's an execution of the little horns burned with fire. It's not till Revelation till we see actually how that's played out, and we can see that it's these guys that destroy the little horn.
Excuse me, Tom.
Yes.
It says, I'm just trying to work this out in my head. He said, I watched in verse 11, and then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking, I watched till the beast was slain. So that is that fourth beast to me. Is that right? Given to the burning flame. And as for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season.
Right.
And a time. So
and
there's only 3 beasts left. Is that right?
Well, it appears right, and I can say that I have struggled with that as well. But when we look at other prophecies that are sister prophecies or parallel prophecies, we can see that that actually doesn't work. That's what it seems like, but it isn't. And we're going to get there. If you can just hang on to that, we're not going to ignore that because that's going to come back to us. Okay? When we look at another prophecy, we're going to see that. All right? Fair enough? Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the connecting dot that I'm looking at now is the persecution and then judgment. And then judgment. So by the time we get to the fourth beast, it's persecuting God's people, there's a judgment, and there's an executive phase of the judgment when this little horn power is destroyed. So let's go back to Revelation and something that we want to see there. When we go back to Revelation chapter 6, when we get to the fourth horse, it says that this fourth horse was killing. So that's similar to this one right here. And then it says, and he opened the fifth seal, and I saw under the altars the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. So if they're slain for the word of God, would they be the saints?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's the same thing back here. It says that this power made war against God's people, war against the saints. So we see this fourth horseman, once the fourth horseman comes along, same thing as this, there was warring against God's people. And then it says, and they cried.
Aren't they already dead? In this particular vision, this part, these people are dead already.
That's right. That's right. And that's because if we read where we just read, it said in verse 8, a few minutes ago, that I looked and behold a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed him, and the power was given over to the fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and with the beasts of the earth. So now there's where the killing starts, with the fourth horseman. And that's exactly what we saw in Revelation chapter 7. When we get to the fourth beast, the little horn comes up, little horn starts doing its stuff, that's when the killing starts. And then the killing spreads to the whole world. It says it consumes the whole world. So it sets the whole world into this operation. We see the same thing with the dappled horse. It starts to kill in Revelation chapter 6, and all these different methods, and by the beast of the earth, which I think is a direct link to here. But then it talks about judgment. So my question is this a different judgment than Daniel 7? Or is it the same judgment? Or is there lots of judgments?
What's the judgment?
What judgment are you talking about in Revelation?
In Revelation chapter 6,
Which verse?
in verse 10,
Oh, right. Okay.
it references the judgment.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So I saw something, Tom, that I thought was interesting was in the first horse, a crown was given to him. And in the second horse, a great sword was given to him. I can't find anything in the third horse, but the fourth horse, power was given to them. So like the conglomerate beast, that fourth beast, that's a conglomerate of different beasts. Does that make sense?
Which beast are you talking about? I think I know, but I just want you to be clear.
The lion and the leopards and the feet of a bear, that beast.
Okay.
The sea beast.
Okay.
The sea beast.
So you're connecting a dot that's out front, but I think it's an accurate connection. So in Daniel, this is the beauty of these prophecies. In Daniel, we see the beasts operating separately. We see the individual, we're told these are individual kingdoms. And then at the end, it says that this kingdom consumes the other kingdoms. So the question is, are all these kingdoms alive at the same time? Or are they in history? Are they one after another? But it's a question, it's a reasonable question. But this one consumes these other ones. So is it, and I'm just throwing this out here because something we've got to come to grips with. If this is Rome, if this fourth beast is Rome, did it consume Babylon? Like literally?
Yeah. In history.
Just take that back. I'm going to give you another chance to answer that. This is Rome, the fourth in our historical, and most churches, most evangelical churches, I'm not sure what the Catholic Church says about this. I should know, I was a Catholic. Most evangelical churches interpret the lion as Babylon, the bear as Medo-Persia, leopard is the king of Greece, Alexander the Great, and the fourth beast would be Rome. Now, from there, they really get confused on the 10 kings, the division of all of this. I'm not dealing with that right now. My question is what do we do with, if this is Rome, down at the end, we just read in verse 23, it says it consumes the whole earth. So how, if these kingdoms are kingdoms in history, how does the fourth beast consume Babylon? And I'm talking literal now, I'm not talking spiritually, because these aren't spiritual kingdoms, they're literal kingdoms. So how does Rome consume Babylon? Literally.
Well, Rome didn't consume the other kingdoms, but sucked them into it somehow. Like, okay, never mind.
No, I get what you're saying, but what we're trying to do when we do that kind of gymnastics, we're trying to make it fit into our conception of what we've been taught or what we think. Yeah. But the question is it's a very simple question, I think, and this is my question to all those people that want to have this Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. How do we say legitimately that Rome consumed Babylon and Medo-Persia? Because Rome didn't consume Medo-Persia, Greece did.
Yeah. Right.
And Rome didn't consume Babylon, Medo-Persia did.
Right.
So it doesn't, it doesn't fit what the word is saying, and it's got to fit what the word is saying. So if we're looking at this from another perspective, if these are all contemporary kingdoms, which, and I think most of you know this, but when I discovered this, it actually blew my mind, because I thought, how could I miss that? When it says in chapter 7, it says in chapter 7, for an example, verse 8.
Revelation or Daniel?
Daniel chapter 7, verse 8. And it's been a little while since I looked at this, so I hope I'm going to be accurate on this. It says, after this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampled the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now, in our English language today, when we read that, we're thinking before in time. Right?
Not in front of, yeah.
But this is an Aramaic word, ancient Chaldean. It's not Hebrew. You can't go to the Hebrew word here. You got to go to the Chaldean word. Well, there's only a couple other books that are written in that ancient Chaldee. One is Ezra, I believe. Might be Esther. I can't remember. I think it was Esther. And also, what's the other one? Nehemiah. What's the other small books? Ezra. Yeah, Ezra, Nehemiah, and probably Esther. When Nehemiah went, it says before the king, it's the same word. So anytime you look at this word in other places that it's talking about, it's in the presence of. That's what the meaning of the word is. It's not before in time. It's in the presence of. It's before. I stand before you right now. And so this is what the word. So in about 5 places in the book of Daniel, it uses this same term. And it's not talking about time. It's talking about in the present. So if in the 4th kingdom, it's talking about in the presence of the other kings. In other words, they're contemporaries. They're not one after another coming in time. But that word was not really checked out when they came to the interpretation. When I first was learning about this chapter, I thought, oh, before, in time. Oh, no, that's not what that word means, actually. It's in the presence of. And we see this in about 4 or 5 places in this chapter. You can go through there. I'm just looking for another one. Oh yeah, another obvious one here is verse 13. I was watching in night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him, in the presence of. Same word. That's what that word means. And I think it's 4 or 5 times in this chapter that it uses that word. And it completely changes the time frame. And what it says, these are all contemporaries. Back to your, I think, Marguerite, you mentioned, these are the same animals that we see in Revelation 13, but they're all working together in one beast. Well, that's what this says when the 4th beast comes along. It says that he consumes all the other kingdoms. And so that's that now working together concept that's going on. So here clearly we can see in Revelation 13 there's a direct link, but our question is, can we directly link it to this one? Well, there's another, this link here. I believe this is a very powerful link in regard to time, is we see the judgment in this chapter, in chapter 6 as well. And so that's that question that I had. Okay, is this a different judgment? Or is it the same judgment? How many judgments are there? Well, in my study of prophecy, there's a judgment just prior to when Yeshua comes back. And that's how he has the rewards to give everyone according to their works when he returns, because there has been a judgment. And so I'm saying that this judgment, my thought is, this judgment is equal to this judgment. Therefore, if that's true, if that is true, then the white horse equals the lion, the red horse equals the bear, black horse is this guy, and the dappled horse is that one. Has to be.
But we have to prove it better.
And the other point that Marguerite made there was in chapter 6, verse 8, that dappled horse is turned into a them as
Right.
opposed to a
Right.
he. It's a them.
Right.
So like the 10 horns.
It's exactly. So that could be all of this stuff, and it could include all of that as well. Okay. So there's one other connection that we can make, I think. I don't know, can you guys see this? You see that one? Yeah. That's Daniel's first vision that's recorded. Nebuchadnezzar's dream was not Daniel's vision. This was Daniel's first vision. This is John's first vision, as far as kingdoms were concerned. So is it possible that Daniel's vision parallels John's vision? I think there's a number of clear links here that we've got to entertain. It's talking about the same thing. Okay, any other thoughts? I don't know, what time is it? Yeah, we're just about out of time.
10 to 1.
Any other thoughts on this? Okay, I want to just deal a little bit, Cheryl, with your question that you had on the destruction of this beast. Okay? If we're looking at this correctly, there's a few things here. I'll just do this just to make some summing up. This crown, I think this is the number one kingdom. This is also the number one kingdom. The reason why I think this one has a white horse is because we're going to see something that we're not seeing quite yet, but it's developing right now, is we're going to see a return to a Judeo-Christian conservativeness in this beast. Right here. And it will try to change the world back to its Judeo-Christian values. That's this beast. And I think that's why it's white. That's what I think. This is going to be a good thing. This is going to be a good thing. I'm just going to go way out on a limb, and I know people are going to think that this is wrong. I don't know if you guys will, but it's a possibility because I've had people say that they don't think this. But this return to Judeo-Christian values and the Bible, because that's what they use, and this book, is actually, I believe, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit on all flesh. Now let's, and I know that sounds a little bit radical, but let's just explore that concept for a little bit. Was Martin Luther led by the Holy Spirit when he took on Rome?
More than likely.
Well, he went hardcore against the Catholic Church. But did Martin Luther have all the truth? No. John Wesley, all the reformers, that was a working out of getting back to what the Word was trying to teach. Did they have all truth? No, absolutely not. There was a progression of understanding through the process of the Reformation. Well, the Reformation got hijacked, but it has been developing. The Reformation got hijacked. How did it get hijacked? It got hijacked because Western civilization went to sleep for about 5 decades. And all of a sudden, Christianity fell by the wayside. But God is not going to leave us in the ditch. He's reviving us. He's reviving all of us. He's even reviving, dare I say, evangelical leaders that are keeping Sunday. But he doesn't want to leave them there. He wants them to move forward, but he's got to wake them up. So he's allowing evil to manifest itself for what it is. And the church, the Judeo-Christian church, is waking up. And we're seeing it across the world. It's our job to go to them once they're awake and show them what the Word actually says. They think they know what it says, but they don't really know what it says. And so our job, our God-given job, is to go into all nations, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. And that's what we do. But we have to have people that are awake to do that. We can't have sleeping people. And so God is waking people up right now. Lots of people. And the whole world's going to wake up. Some of it's going to go this way, and some of it will go our way. But I do believe that this waking of the Christian, Judeo-Christian West is going to have a major effect in this world. In fact, they will gain control in this world. And that's why I think this guy has a white horse and a crown going to conquer. This power is going to conquer the world. And I've seen this before. Has anyone heard of President Reagan? Do you guys know who President Reagan was?
That goes back like 45 years.
Wow, I'm showing my age. President Reagan, I saw a cartoon of President Reagan. And the cartoon, I wish I had this. It said, "In this sign, I will conquer." Wow, that was prophecy. Was Reagan a conservative? Yes, he was. Probably one of the known as one of the best conservatives that the United States has had. We've got a conservative movement in the United States that I believe is going to change the world. And that sign is how they're going to do it. And we can read all about that in Revelation 13. But it's going to be our opportunity, because these people are going to use the Word. And it's going to be our opportunity to use the Word as well. Sword to sword. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so let's, I just about got out of your question, didn't I, Cheryl? I just about got out of it. Okay, let's answer it. We have one beast. This would be 2. This will be our third. Actually, let's do this. That's one kingdom. That's one kingdom. That's one kingdom. This is actually 7 kingdoms. The reason why that's 7 kingdoms, we have 10 minus 3, it says, are uprooted. So it's left with 7 and a little horn. So your question is the whole beast destroyed, or is it just the little horn? I'm thinking it's the little horn and not the whole beast. Why do I say that? Because I think the little horn is the harlot of Revelation 17. Revelation 17 says that the harlot is burned with fire, and the 10 kings destroy the harlot. 7, 8, 9, 10. The harlot controls these 10 kings. Ultimately, these 10 kings will execute judgment on the harlot. That's why I think that it's not talking about the 4th beast, because we don't end up, if we get rid of these 7 in the 4th beast, we only have 3 kings at the end. So the math doesn't work.
Mm.
That's that 10 kings destroying the harlot. That's Revelation right around by 14 through 17, somewhere in there. Anyways, let's, if there's any questions, we'll take those, or any other comments. Other than that, we'll let you guys go.
So will we find out who the 4 heads and the 4 wings of the leopard is?
Oh yeah. Well, let's just throw some ideas out. If you Google China's flag, and you're going to see 1 big star and 4 little stars. Now, I'm not sure if that's prophetic, but we're kind of, this is kind of, to me, the most fun part is to make application here. When the eagle goes down, the bear raises up on one side and devours much flesh. When the eagle goes down, the leopard rises up and takes 4 kingdoms. Who's that? That would be Japan, Taiwan, probably the Philippines, maybe Korea. Korea. Yeah.
China.
What's that?
China.
China will. Yes. China will take possession. The only reason why China isn't moving now in the East Asia is because the eagle is not dead yet. The United States is still somewhat keeping countries in check. When Donald Trump gets back in, the whole game changes. That's when the crown comes in. That's going to be the Judeo-Christian move, and they're going to change the world, but they're going to go down. And when they go down, the bear's going to go, and the leopard's going to go, and the papacy will start its persecution when the United States goes down. But there's a lot of things that are going to happen within those time frames. But yeah. So I think the 4 heads are the 4 major nations that China will take over once the United States goes down. The United States is going to hold China in check while President Trump is in place. They won't do anything. They're going to wait till they go down, which they will.
List of questions to send.
Mm-hmm.
That was Marguerite saying something.
Marguerite, did you?
I was wondering, what are the 4 wings on the leopard? Did you say what that was, or?
Well, they're probably connected to the 4 heads somehow. 4 wings, 4 heads. I'm if there's a good idea there, I'm You know, I just think it's meaning four more kingdoms are going to join into that one. Like the 10 horns on this, the 4 heads would represent kingdoms that come on board with China. And also it says dominion is given to it. So once the eagle's down, then world dominion, China is going to have world dominion instead of the United States. That's not good news. I don't like that. But that's the way the script goes, which is reasonable. When we look out there, if the United States goes down, I mean, look what's going on right now, and they're not quite down yet. So, yeah. Okay.
Father, we are so grateful for the insight that you have given us as we are living in these days. May we ever be open to hearing your word pointing out to us as these things unfold, that we will understand the truth and we'll be able to share it to others and to be able to inspire them and to just proclaim the good news that you have commissioned us to do. And it's a worldwide event, Father, and we rely on your Spirit to help us. We will be your hands and feet, but you need to be our heart. So may you lead and guide us. I pray your blessing on each one represented here, wherever we are, and that we will have opportunities to share for you. We praise you in the name of Yeshua. Amen.
Amen.